Yo, what's up guys? You got pokeaimMD here. Today I have probably the most requested Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl moveset video guide on how to use GLISCOR. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about this Pokemon. I'm gonna be real, I could probably talk about this Pokemon for 4 hours and still not cover everything because it's that good of a Pokemon. But I got you guys a lot of sets today, and from there you guys can make really whatever you want. This Pokemon doesn't even have access to Toxic right now, which opens up even more sets for this mon. Absolutely incredible Pokemon. If you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure you leave a like. If you like them, leave a like. Let me know which Pokemon you want to see next. And also, if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. On my way to 300K, I upload Pokemon content every single day, multiple videos every single day. And let's just dive right into GLISCOR. That's it. So the best thing about GLISCOR, in my opinion, is besides its ground flying typing, which is incredible, both offensively and defensively, the biggest thing is its hidden ability, Poison Heal, which means when this Pokemon is poisoned, it recovers 1/8 of its maximum HP per turn. Such a sick ability, especially when you couple that with a Toxic Orb, because you poison yourself and you're just healing more than leftovers, which is like the biggest thing about GLISCOR. It turns a Pokemon with base 75 HP, base 75 special defense into a defensive beast because you're having trouble 2-KOing it or knocking it out since it's recovering so much turn per turn. So the first set we have is probably one of the most common GLISCOR sets, and that is either Stealth Rock or Defog, the special defensive U-turn set that you put on your team when you want to get other Pokemon in, but you also want a Heatran check, but you also want an Infernape check, but you also want to check the Garchomp, but you also want to make sure nothing gets spored on your team. So that is special defensive GLISCOR. Now this Pokemon likes to run special defensive because it can easily eat weaker hits like Scalds from Gastrodon or Moonblast from Clefable. Yeah, even super effective Scalds doesn't care. And of course, if it's poison, it doesn't care about potentially Scald burns. It also allows it to just shrug off Heatran's hits, which is like the biggest thing, right? You want to be able to switch into that Pokemon. So I'll explain the EVs really quickly, but the 60 speed allows you to outspeed Timid Magnezone, so even Choice Specs Magnezone, as well as Adamant Breloom. Pretty good speed tiers to outspeed. You can get a U-turn off on Breloom, or you can Earthquake Magnezone, obviously not allowing Magnezone to 2-KO you with Specs Flash Cannon, which it can do, but it cannot be faster than you. The 244 HP EVs give you the, at level 100, it gives you the HP number 352, you know, with that 244 investment and 31 IVs. And that is basically the maximum amount of recovery that GLISCOR can get from Poison Heal, because if you divide 352 divided by 8, gives you 44. So you get the absolute max 44 that you can get from recovery turn per turn, while giving you the highest HP output. And then the rest is just put into special defense. Like I said, it allows it to take on Pokemon like Gengar. It can even eat like a Surf from Starmie. It could even eat a Hydro Pump from Rotom. It might even stall out defensive Rotom too, depending. But yeah, the idea is Earthquake gives you the Heatran check. You turn around, you give your team momentum, something that maybe you want to pivot into a not very effective move, and then let something else get in for free. Defog or Stealth Rock really depends on your team. If you have a Rabbit Spinner or an opposing or another Defogger on your team, then you can use Stealth Rock on it. And if you don't, go ahead and use Defog. GLISCOR is a great defogger because it's only hit by Stealth Rock. Like, you know, the Toxic Spikes, T-Spikes, the regular Spikes, as well as Sticky Whip, do not affect GLISCOR. And Roost, of course, is for longevity. Like, it's part of the big reason why this Pokemon is so good. Not only can it tank hits, but it has a reliable recovery in Roost. The next set is the knockoff set. It's very similar, but you actually just replace the U-turn for knockoff, and a lot of Pokemon do not have access to knockoff right now due to the fact that there is no Pokemon home out, and knockoff was a move that a lot of Pokemon could get because of previous generations. But in this, a lot of Pokemon don't have knockoff. However, GLISCOR is one of them, and this allows GLISCOR to get rid of items, which is pretty big. For example, GLISCOR is typically paired with Magnezone because they match pretty well together, right? Like Magnezone can deal with water types and resist ice, whereas GLISCOR is immune to the ground type attacks aimed at that. So knockoff is really nice because you can get rid of Shed Shell on Skarmory. That way it cannot switch out from your Magnet Pull Magnezone. It also just good for getting rid of leftovers, choice items, like getting rid of a Choice Specs, for instance, on Latios. Unless it's packing Ice Beam, it can't knock you out after, like, at all. So you can knock it off, do a lot, because knockoff gets boosted in power, if you guys didn't know, when your opponent has an item from its 65 to from its 65 base power to 97.5. So because it's 1.5 times if the foe is holding an item. So it's actually a really strong move. Like, I'm glad they buffed that for a long time ago. But it's great for getting rid of the leftovers on Clefable, which is pretty big, especially if they're unaware Clefable. So you can start wearing them down with Stealth Rock and let another partner from yours be able to deal with them, getting rid of a Toxic Orb on opposing GLISCOR before maybe they activate. Now, you're jolly on this one because if you are running it as Defog or Stealth Rocker, you want to be a little bit better versus Heatran, whereas the other one is more so to pivot into Heatran and U-turn out. This one wants to be faster than at least modest Heatran, and the rest is put into Special Defense and HP, allowing you to better deal with Gengar that way. Earthquake, Knockoff, Roost, and then again, Defog or Stealth Rock. It really depends on what you need for your team, right? It's a perfect Defogger, it's a perfect Stealth Rocker. I like Knockoff a lot, plus Stealth Rock too, because if Pokemon come out to Defog on you, like Skarmory for instance, you knock off their Shed Shell, you're in a good position. You knock off Tangrowths, leftovers, you're in a good position. So just getting rid of opposing items is fantastic. And I'm trying to be very brief with this because like I said guys, I could talk for a long time about this Pokemon. The next set we have is the Stall Breaker set of GLISCOR, and this set aims to make your opponent do nothing. That's basically it. Tired of Clefable wishing and doing things like that, tired of Skarmory spiking and doing things like that, put Taunt on your GLISCOR. So this one is actually also for teams that find themselves weaker to Adamant Lucario, Timid Heatran, Offensive Heatran. So you can run this GLISCOR. It's still Jolly Nature. 244 HP is the benchmark on most GLISCORs that I'm going to be using. So you guys should be using that too. Just that specifically, but there's other HP you can find. But again, if you're going for that, you want it. The 116 speed gets you 280, which makes you faster than Adamant Lucario, Timid Heatran, you know, everything below that, like Jolly, Tyranitar, and stuff like that. You want to be able to taunt them. You also want to be able to outspeed a +2 Lucario if it's Adamant because it can KO you, whereas Jolly, the roll is in your favor if you're at full HP. So you want to be able to outspeed them and knock them out. So again, taunt is really nice because let's say a Skarmory is in front of you. You can taunt it, stop it from spiking, and then you can knock off its item. And if it's if it had leftovers, then you get rid of the recovery. And if it's forced to go for Brave Bird, it's actually losing HP every single time because of recoil. And you can taunt and Roost beat that 1v1. You can run Ice Fang though if you don't want to run knockoff. Ice Fang is a little bit better versus obviously dragons like Dragonite, Garchomp, hits GLISCOR as well, but it's also better versus Breloom too. But Taunt Knockoff is just so good because this mon can beat Stall on its own. In fact, besides opposing GLISCOR, this mon can 1v1 the majority of Pokemon on Stall. Especially because like even things like Quagsire, Unaware Quagsire, Skull does not do anything to GLISCOR, man. With that special defense, you are eating it up. So you can force them to use all of it, which is really, really nice. So if you want a little Stall Breaker set, this is your way. Most of these, actually all of these sets are Poison Heal. I don't recommend Sandveil just because you are limited in your sand turns now, right? Back in the day, I think Sandveil was really good with this. We used to call this Brit Score, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, that was like during DVP metagame. I believe we called it Brit Score. But you have like this Pokemon pair with Empoleon, and they were perfect together. They were perfect together. And then you have the... and then you basically have the Sandveil, so if your opponent went for like Hydro Pulp or Ice Beam with their Starmie or their Rotoms, they were going to miss for the most part, and then you just beat them 1v1. But yeah, so it's just like, it's really cool. But again, most of them are going to be Poison Heal now. I think in-game, though, if you're playing in-game, Hyper Cutter is incredible. Like, when I play through in-game, again, I'm a little bit off track, but we're going back, but it's a moveset for in-game, right? When I use GLISCOR in-game, I use Swords Dance, Acrobatics, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. I use Rock Slide or Knockoff. And it was just great, right? It was with Hyper Cutter, I didn't have to worry about Gyarados. Gyarados just dropped to +2 Acrobatics because I was running no item in-game, obviously. Hyper Cutter means you didn't have to worry about the Intimidates from Staraptor or Luxray in-game. So that was just like if you want an in-game one, that's what I would use particularly. But yeah, Starbreaker is fantastic. Now the next set might seem a little bit weird running Acrobatics with an item. Let me explain a little bit. So this is like when your team is weak to Adamant Breloom, but also Heatran. But you also want Stealth Rock, but you also want a switch into Gengar, and you want something that can check Infernape all in one. This is when you use the Earthquake, Acrobatics, Roost, Stealth Rock, GLISCOR. So the idea behind this is that even though Acrobatics is only 55 base power when you have the item, the Toxic Orb, it's still enough to KO Offensive Breloom easily. It KOs Offensive Breloom easily. And another cool thing about this too is that if you have your Toxic Orb activated, some fatter Pokemon that could beat some variants of GLISCOR, like Tangrowth, though it doesn't always beat it, but a lot of GLISCOR can actually beat Tangrowth 1v1. But like U-turn GLISCOR will eventually lose to it 1v1. if they knock you off or something knocks you off after your Toxic Orb is activated, you have your acrobatics at full HP, so it's or max power, so it's 110 base power, right? Or instead of 55 when you don't have an item. So this is really cool because if they knock you off, you actually beat Tangrowth 1v1 because they don't recover enough with Giga Drain. They only get about 10 to 12% back HP per turn, whereas you're doing about 40-something% to physically defensive. So you're actually beating them 1v1 with this set. But it's mainly when your team is like weak to Breloom Heatran and you're not sure what you want to put on it, and you still need a Stealth Rocker, then this GLISCOR is one that you could do. The 72 HP also allows, 72 speed, excuse me, also allows you to outspeed Dragon Dance Tyranitar, like Jolly Tyranitar, not Dragon Dance, but most Jolly Tyranitars are going to be Dragon Dance, but it allows you to outspeed it by 1 point, so you get it with Earthquake for the 2-hit KO with Stealth Rock. So just a few, actually it's a 2-hit KO on offensive, but just a few things like that. Like if your team is a little bit weak to all that and you want like the catch-all, this is the GLISCOR you're probably going to use. So now we're going to get into the Swords Dance GLISCOR variants. So probably the most common Swords Dance GLISCOR variant is a special defensive Swords Dance, because again, I already mentioned, this thing can eat hits from basically everything. Gengar, Alakazam, Latios, if it's not Ice Beam, if it's not Specs Ice Beam. Mon can eat like overheats from Infernape easily, just special attackers. It eats weaker Scalds from like Gastrodon. Shoot, even an Ice Beam from Gastrodon, this thing will eat. And then the next turn you can roost it off, losing your flying type, so it's only 2 times effective instead of 4 times effective, and you can eat it after that. So it's Swords Dance, Earthquake, Roost, and Facade or Ice Fang. Facade is great because it is 140 base power due to you always being poisoned. However, if you find yourself a little bit weaker to opposing GLISCOR, you can switch over to Ice Fang. It's just better versus that. Also being better again versus Dragonite and Garchomp. I think on the special defensive sets though, I like Facade a little bit better just because it's stronger overall versus things. But in the next that I show you, you can run Ice Fang over it as well. But 20 speed allows you to outspeed Modest Heatran. I think that if you're running Swords Dance, you don't want to be like cooked by like, for instance, a Heatran in the sun, like a Specs Heatran in the sun. Or something like that, right? So you want to at least be able to outspeed them and go for Earthquake. You can make an argument for going faster than Jolly, but I don't like that at the moment. And if the metagame does shift to a point where that is the most common set, then sure, we'll go to that. But yeah, basically using Jolly GLISCOR, 20 speed, 244 special defense, 244 HP. Now the next set is more physically defensive. Now I think that like the problem with physically defensive GLISCOR is that it does not take special hits well, and that's probably like a dub. But like when you're used to using a certain variant of GLISCOR, right, and you see how much it takes from everything, right? Basically, GLISCOR is unbeatable. I call it the unbeatable Pokemon because it doesn't die to super effective hits, man. But when you run Phys Def, it does die to super effective hits, right? Like Hydro from like defensive Rotom type of things. Like after Stealth Rock, you're dying, right? Whereas that's something that special defensive GLISCOR would eat for days, pick like 60% and roost it off. You know what I mean? So it's the physically defensive one though is better, like I said, versus Dragonite, versus Garchomp, versus just those physical attackers. SD Swords Dance, Infernape, Lucario, right? SD Scizor. If you find yourself weaker to those type of things, this is the way you go. Maybe Breloom as well. So 148 speed allows you to outspeed Jolly Breloom. I think that on physically defensive, that's very important because again, you're physically defensive, so you're taking the bullet seeds better, so you might as well be able to outspeed it and then deal with it with a +2 Facade or Ice Fang. The 116 defense, again, lets you take on those aforementioned threats. Rust and HP, Impish Nature this time. Just Swords Dance, defensive. You think you're a little bit weaker to those Pokemon, this is the way you go. Now, I do want to note that I didn't put any Protect GLISCOR variants here, but Protect is definitely possible to get. There's another GLISCOR set that I'm doing after this, but I didn't put any Protect variants on. I think Protect variants are better with Toxic, personally, but there is a lot. I still think Protect is good. Don't get me wrong. If I put Protect on it, I put a million slashes with the move, right? Because Protect is just cool because you get the you get to not only scout your opponent, but you also get the extra Poison Heal recovery, and you combine the Protect, Roost, Earthquake, maybe Ice Fang type of thing, or Knockoff, and you have yourself a really, really, really annoying Pokemon, especially with Knockoff. So if you want to use that, you can run Earthquake, Knockoff, or Ice Fang, Roost, and then Protect type of thing. I think that's the way to do it. But when Toxic does come back on GLISCOR, that's the way to do it. Now, even though Toxic is not on GLISCOR, it does have a way of poisoning the opponent, and that is the final set, which is the SD offensive set with Fling. Now, when you fling a Toxic Orb, the opponent actually gets badly poisoned. This is pretty cool because this is an offensive Swords Dance GLISCOR, and this allows you to beat Unaware Clefable. You fling them a Toxic Orb when they come in, they are now badly poisoned, and your Earthquakes are 2-KOing them. Obviously, because they're unaware, they don't care about your boosted attacks, but also at the same but because they're a poison, they can't really wall you as effectively as they could. Also, when you fling your Toxic Orb, you get your 110 base power acrobatics after, so you're still poison, but now your acrobatics is your strongest move. It's 110 base power before stab. So the speed is for Breloom, 263, you know, Breloom hits 262. The HP is 84 because it gives you a nice poison heal recovery number as well. And then the attack is max because you want to obviously, you know, have the strongest damage output when you are using an offensive Gliscor. And then you have 24 defense. 24 defense, 84 HP lets you take like outrage from Garchomp slightly better. So if you're like in at full HP and they go for outrage and their Scarf, they don't 2-hit KO you. If I'm not mistaken, that's why I calced for that. But it also lets you just take like random hits from like Breloom a little bit better too. I just didn't want to put it in HP because I wanted the poison heal recovery for Gliscor, so I ended up putting it in defense. But naturally, Gliscor also with the HP doesn't like get 2-hit KO by Moonblast from Uninvested Clefable, so you can do the fling on it and then get them badly poisoned and then proceed to acrobatics them. Obviously, be careful about like Ice Beams, random Ice Beam coming out, things like that. But this is just a more offensive variant of Swordsdance Gliscor if this is something that, you know, you wanted to try out. But that's basically all I have for Gliscor. Like I said, I could talk about this Pokemon forever, but I tried to keep it as brief as possible. Video still ended up being like 16 minutes, but I tried to keep it as brief as possible. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want some more Pokemon videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.